Well, my new Split-Top Roubo Workbench is nearly complete, and this was one heck of a project. I had a great opportunity to practice some old skills and learn some new ones. And in fact, one of those new things I learned is the concept of tapping holes in wood, basically cutting threads so that we can use bolts instead of using things like nails and screws. There are some powerful applications for something like this, so let me show how we used it on the bench, and then we'll cut some together. Pretty much all of the leg vise components from Benchcrafted attach via bolts that go into threads. And it's really a cool thing. If you think about it, these are movable parts. Things may break. At some point, we may need to replace the chop. You may need to make an adjustment to the hardware. So it's good to be able to take it apart. Here's another example. This roller guide down here needs to adjust to hold the parallel guide in just the right position. So we need to make fine adjustments up and down. So having threaded bolts here allows us to loosen things up, make the adjustment, tighten it back down, and know that we're not really doing any damage to the wood because it's in a thread. All right, so let's take a look at some traditional ways of using hardware to hold wood pieces together and why they might not be as good as a threaded hold. Let's look at nails first. Nails are pretty much a brute force way of holding things together. The nail is driven into the wood, splitting and compressing the fibers the whole way. Over time, natural forces will cause the wood to compress even further, and eventually the two pieces will come loose because the nail has nothing to grip onto. Now, one step up from a nail is a screw. When you rotate the screw into the wood, it pulls itself in and essentially threads itself into the fibers. Now, the good thing about screws is they are removable, but over the course of years, if you loosen and tighten one, you wind up widening those threads. You may even wind up destroying the threads, which the whole thing just goes to poop at that point. And now the star of our show, the threaded bolt. Once the threads are cut into the wood, you can put this bolt in and out as many times as you need to, and it really doesn't do any damage to the wood because the bolt's threads are sized perfectly to fit nice and smooth into the threads that are cut into the wood. So this is perfect for applications where you may need to loosen and tighten this thing over and over. It's going to last much, much longer. All you need to make a threaded hole is a drill bit and a tap, and these are basically a matched pair. You want to make sure that the drill bit clears most of the material out and leaves just enough so that the tap can cut the threads appropriately. Now, if you want, you can actually buy the tap and the bit in a set, so you know you have the perfect matched pair. But typically these are sized, you could look them up, and you can make sure you get the right tap set with the right bit. And of course, you want to make sure that the tap, the threads that it winds up cutting, are perfect for the bolt that you're going to use. Because I want my hole to be nice and straight and perfectly perpendicular to the surface, I'm going to use my drill press to do the initial drilling. Now this is where the magic happens. Typically, you would take the tap and put it into a special tap wrench. It's basically a T-handled wrench that gives you lots of leverage, and you can twist this guy down and slowly but surely cut the threads. But I think we can do better than that. If we take our time, we can use a power drill and get this done with quite a bit less elbow grease. So I'm just going to very carefully place the tapered tip into the hole and very slowly start to turn. Let the threads do the cutting. You don't really have to push down. And you could speed up once you get started. Obviously, you want your drill on its slowest setting. And once you get going, let's pick up the speed a little bit. All right, we're pretty much at the capacity of the tap, so now we can reverse the direction and slowly pull it out. Now, you can't go too fast here. If you go too fast, you will strip everything out and just have a nice hole, which you don't want. Right, you're backing out these threads as if you were backing out an actual bolt. There we go. Let's give it a shot. Now, just as an example, I just took a scrap piece of wood and put a hole in it that's big enough to take the bolt without catching, and this will sort of serve as our example of something you might want to connect when you're putting two pieces together. Kind of like our roller brackets for the workbench. And once you get down to the bottom of the hole and your bolt starts to make contact with your washers, You're gonna find this thing getting real tight, real fast. All right, that is going nowhere. So check it out, just one bolt, these two pieces are together, and this is no joke, these things are really tight. I can't even move them. And again, one bolt. So imagine if you had multiples, you would have an incredibly secure fit, and you would be able to loosen it and move this piece if you needed to. Incredible possibilities. Of course, one alternative here would be to use threaded inserts, and I've used them in the past too. The problem is they tend to come loose, and not the threads themselves, because the threads themselves are made of metal. You basically drill a hole and drive the threaded insert into the wood. It's the method that the insert is attached to the wood that tends to come loose over time. So I don't really think those are the best solution either. I think now that I know about this method, I think I'm going to use this a lot on jigs and fixtures and any project that I have a part that needs to be loosened and tightened again, and I want to make sure that it lasts for a good long time. Here's the other thing that's great about this. These taps are very cheap, only a couple bucks a piece, and they're gonna last forever because you're not drilling into metal, you're just tapping wood. So you should have no problem with these taps lasting for decades. You know, you probably pass them on to the next generation. So spend a few bucks, get a couple taps, let me know what you think if you include them in your projects. I'd like to thank Benchcrafted, by the way, because they introduced me to this entire technique. I would have never thought of doing this in wood projects, so I'd like to thank them for that. And by the way, if you're interested in this Roubo workbench build, we're doing it right now in the guild, so go to woodwhispererguild.com and you can see what it's all about. We have a plan, and we're giving you just a buttload, I like that phrase, a buttload of video content for you to check out. It's at woodwhispererguild.com. Thanks for watching.